the window had been busted out and part of our gear had been stolen.
There's nowhere to play up here at all.
I'm sitting there kind of by myself, like waiting for my manners, and the mirrors, like the mirrors kind of like spin open like 90 degrees, like they kind of rotate open, and all these women in sexy lingerie can come walking out from behind the mirrors.
I'm just going to throw this out there that it almost sounded like you were kind of the dark side sometimes of the scene.
Just when I'd parted ways with Monuments, and so it was really, really desperate time of my life.
At the end of it, our bass player told us, like, he just looked at us like, yeah, this is my last show.
So, like, basically back to the Beast era.
Dealing with this alcohol intake, and we're at a Christian festival, and we're supposed to be a Christian band. I was kind of like, man, this sucks. This is not a good look.
Welcome back to Dark Side of the Scene. I'm Brandon.
I'm Ed.
The dynamic duo.
Yeah, sure. Dynamic duo. So I have something cool to share, but I don't know if it's that cool. I went to see Emperor live, right, in Chicago. It was fantastic. And they were selling merch like crazy.
Silence your damn phone, dinger. The ring-a-ding-ding.
I can't control that, but anyway, the opening band, which was pretty cool, they're called Immortal Bird, and they have a female singer, and she flat out said, support us. We didn't bring any merch because Live Nation decided they want to charge us 20%. Mind you, they were like a local band who just happened to get the opportunity to open for Emperor, and it was kind of crazy because she flat out said that. And that's why I knew they didn't have any merch to sell. And I'm like, that's weird. And God only knows how much they made off Emperor that night because like everything almost sold out. So that's messed up, dude. For real.
Yeah. That sounds about on par for Live Nation and all that stuff. They're all fucking crooks.
That's fucked up. Like, especially that for a local band, I mean, good for them. I gave them a like, follow their page just for saying that. I mean, I liked them anyway, but that sucks, like you have such a big audience, and I would hope people followed through and ordered some merch from them after that, but who knows? It just sucks for them.
They got to play in front of a bunch of people at least.
Right.
But at the end of the day, fuck taking merch cuts.
Yeah.
I guess I see the point. I don't. Like, as a business, yeah, they want a cut of that. But at the same time, it's like, you didn't pay for this shit, so why are you trying to take money from it? That's horse shit.
Yeah.
Anyways, we've beat that horse pretty much to the fact there's just meat laying there. He's been dead for a while, but the merch cut. Vulture's still picking at it.
It's just bullshit. So yeah, we all know it's the real thing, but it's almost like I almost don't want to go to that venue anymore because of that. I don't know why. I mean, drinks were ridiculously priced anyway. I mean, I didn't drink anything. I just saw how much like beer was, and I'm like, fuck you.
I never bought beer from a concert because of how expensive the shit is.
No, I mean, there's no point in it. It's like you're better off just like pre-gaming, but
pre-game out in the parking lot. Done that before.
Yeah, so there's that.
There's some tips for you out there listening, guys.
Pre-game.
Pre-game.
Pre-game, because Live Nation ain't out in the parking lot watching you.
No shit. Well, if you're out there listening, we appreciate you. We're thankful.
Yes.
If you have not done so yet, you can find us on Facebook. Give us a like. You can find us on Instagram, even though I don't really post on there. We've recently made a Facebook group. Now you can get on there and talk a bunch of shit if you want to. I mean, sometimes the world needs to know about the bad happenings that go on that no one ever wants to talk about. So here's your opportunity. If you don't want to come on the podcast, you can get on there and talk with like-minded individuals.
Yep.
But on that note, I guess if you would like to be on an episode, you can send an email to Brandon@darksideofthescene.com. We'll get you scheduled. But we've got a dude named Scott ready to get on here, so we're going to hang tight and bring him on and hear what he's got to say. I'd like to take this time to welcome Scott to the show. Scott, thanks for coming out and talking to Ed and I.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So Scott, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm originally from New Orleans. I came over to Texas. I was in a couple bands here in Texas. I was with three different bands. We band called My Fix, a band called Gigantelope, and a band called School for the Deaf. And we've got all our stuff on all the streaming and everything. Yeah, man. Outside of that, live here in Austin, Texas, and soaking up some of this heat.
Hmm.
Hang on.
Sorry. Okay.
You're fine. I saw where it listed in the School for the Deaf, and I was actually talking to Ed about this a little bit ago. I said, it looks like he's in a band called School for the Deaf. I was like, unless it meant he worked at a school for the deaf. I was confused.
Got it. Yeah, it's School for the Deaf, one word. If you're looking it up on like any of the stuff, and yeah.
What do you do in your bands? Like what? Yeah.
Yeah, so I play bass on this last project. I played bass and guitars. During the recording process, we were running as 3-piece bass, drums, and vocals, and we were really looking to keep it that way. And when it came to the recording process, we just kind of were recording for ourselves, and just to kind of tweak vocals and kind of really just like an in-house project. And it ended up turning into, oh man, this sounds awesome. I don't know, we weren't really trying to really record the album, but then by the time we were like knee deep in it, we're like, oh, man, this is sounding really good. And is it like we would go back and be like, yeah, well, we didn't really do all of the bass trickery, to get we ran our bass live through like splitters and two different, basically a guitar setup and then a bass setup. And we didn't do that on the recording. It was like we just recorded bass and drums. And I guess we could have probably tweaked some stuff and had that like distorted bass sound, but we've never done that in a studio environment, So it was like, hey, just grab the guitar, let's put down guitars on it. And so yeah, that's kind of my role on some of that stuff. On this last album, I did a lot of the writing on it, since there was no other like guitar players. The drummer's looking at me like, what's up? What do we got? And vocalist, same thing. And so it just kind of ended up falling in my lap. And then, it was kind of the same with the recording process too. On that album, we ended up trying to kind of we just did everything ourselves, just because of, things going on in the world. Right. And then, also we were right in the middle, Austin, Texas had hit this crazy cold snap thing that was just out of control. They called it snowpocalypse. It snowed here in Austin for it was 3 weeks of just this crazy cold where nobody could drive and all this. Austin shuts down when it's cold. So when it gets a little an inch of snow, it's everybody freaks out. And so we were all kind of stuck at home and just recorded nonstop and got this album done. So
is that when all the power grids went down?
Yep, that was it. And for some reason, in our little bubble right here, what had happened was really interesting. We had my old guitar player from the band My Fix went to school for recording and everything, and we were going to record during that time we were going to record 2 songs. We flew him here. Bam, that snowpocalypse hit. He's stuck here. and we had rented all of this like awesome equipment. And so while he's stuck here, you know, we had like rented all this equipment for like 2 days, and all of a sudden everything shut down for weeks. And so we were all like, you know, including him, like, man, let's just put it all down. Let's get it all down. And, you know, of course, like the place we rented all the equipment from, they were like, man, don't even worry about it. Just hold on to all the stuff and we'll settle, you know, we'll comp you guys, and everything will, you know, we're not going to charge you. Obviously, can't get over here to return the stuff. We're like, awesome. And for whatever reason, we didn't lose any power right here. And it was really cool. We just all hung out for a couple of weeks. So
Nice.
But up here, it snows all the time in the winter, so we're just kind of used to it. When you said an inch of snow, I was like, that's nothing down here.
Right.
Yeah, and I think at that time we had probably like it was like a solid foot of snow, and just like, you know, everybody freaks out. Like nobody knows how to drive in it. Nobody knows what to do in it. Like, and of course, like the people from up north are like, you guys are crazy. But of course, nobody's saying anything because you don't have to go to work. Kids don't have to go to school. Like it's the whole thing, you know. So
I used to plow snow for the state highway department, so for 8 years, I hated snow. Now that I don't do that anymore, I could give a shit less.
yeah,
I still hate it, and I've lived here all my life.
yeah. People from I hear people from up north say like the first day it's nice, and then after that it's like, okay, I'm over it.
No, I'm always over it. I live in the wrong area though.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't really like cold weather either,
Yep.
but I don't like miserable hot weather. So there's like no happy medium for me.
Yeah, it's hot here.
I like spring and fall type weather, I guess. Give me low 80s at the highest it'll get, and lows in the 40s or 50s, and I'll be good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's optimal.
Somewhere that place exists, I just don't know where at.
San Diego. You know,
Outer space. Oh
That doesn't exist either.
yeah.
It's
Anyway.
all lies. Anyways,
yeah.
So I was gonna ask, how long have you been playing then, Scott?
Yeah, so it's been 20 something years.
Okay. So you got a lot of experience and
Yeah, my
crazy
first
things happening to you.
yeah, we've seen it all, you know, like we've had the crazy good times, crazy good stories. Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely got some stories. Okay, I can tell you a really good one. This is
Sure.
yeah, so my band My Fix, my first band. We had a female singer. We really did a lot with that band. We ended up opening up for Slipknot on their first album. Mudvayne, Hatebreed, Nonpoint. We used to play with Drowning Pool before and after they got picked up.
Nice.
Yeah. Let me see what else. So anyways, we used to play a lot of just like this, you know, Texas circuit. We were based out of this little town called Killeen, which is about 40 minutes outside of Austin. It's a little military town. And we used to drive to, it was like really cool because we were kind of in the center of like San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas. And then, you know, we could go a couple hours away and hit like a couple other markets. Corpus Christi wasn't too far away. And so we would play Fort Worth a lot with this band named Sweet Tooth, good friends of ours. And every time we would go there, you know, we would play with them maybe once every two or 3 months or something in Fort Worth. And so we would drive up there, and it was always like, you know, it would be dependent on Friday or Saturday or something, you know, that we would pull in Fort Worth. And, you know, sometimes if it was the Friday, we'd go straight to the club, you know, because maybe like one of our guys was getting off work or something, and we'd leave our area and we'd haul ass to get to, you know, Fort Worth on time. But if it was like a Saturday show, we would go a little early and we'd go hang out with them at their house and all that stuff and kind of pregame a little bit. So we, my singer Amanda was, she was a big juggalo. right, into ICP. And so was my like my bass tech guy. And they were like best friends. And they were just like, you know, just is silly in ICP. Like, and so we go to this we're going to play the show in Fort Worth, right? And we're going to hang out at Sweet Tooth's house. They all lived in this house prior to the show. And so we're pulling into like some, you know, this neighborhood, and it's because we don't always go to their house. It's kind of like, oh man, which house is it again? You know, all this kind of stuff. Well, my bass tech guy, we're in probably like 3 or 4 cars. Got some people hanging with us. We have the band, we have girlfriends, all this kind of stuff. Well, our the guy that hooks up my bass, his name's James. This guy, he's the one that, like, you know, big ICP fan, and now I want you to picture this. The guy is wearing like a kung fu outfit. Okay. He's got you know what I mean, with the like the button snap thing.
Yeah,
like
everybody used to wear those all the time. I wish I did.
Okay. Yeah, and it's like a black outfit, and it's got like white cufflink kind of looking things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's wearing that. He's got the band had just gone to Disney World like a couple weeks prior to that. So he's got like these Disney like Mickey Mouse overstuffed gloves, you know, with 3 fingers. It's fitting on his hands. So he's got those on. His face is painted white. He's got a lip ring. He's got he wore contacts, and you know, at that time, right? Bands, like, we got no money. We got bullshit jobs, you know, all this kind of stuff. So he wears contacts, and then he also has like these like colored contacts and stuff, and they're prescription. Well, of course, he's lost his regular contacts, and he's got like 2 separate of these other like weird contacts. So one of them is like a cat eye, and the other one is a like a white eye. And people were like, oh, you know, and like, oh, is he wearing them to, you know, and whatever. And it was like, no, he's actually wearing them because he lost his real contacts, and he lost one of each of these. So this is like all he has to see with. And so, you know, so he's really wearing them because he has to, kind of. So the guy's got white face paint, different colored contacts in. He's got a beanie on, but he cut holes in the beanie so that his Mickey Mouse ears could stick through the beanie. Okay. So this guy just looks totally ridiculous. Lip ring. Okay. So we pull into this neighborhood, and we're like, man, which house is it? Okay, I think this is it right here, right? So we all pull up on the curb, and you know, I think I'm in like the 2nd or 3rd car back, and I'm just like in the back seat or whatever, or talking to my friend or whatever. So we pull up, we stop for a second. A couple minutes later, somebody's like, oh, you know what? Their house is about, I think my guitar player was like calling them, hey, we're here. And they go, oh, we're outside. You guys, oh, we see you guys. You're up the street. Y'all need to come up about 4 to 5 houses closer. And we're like, oh, okay. So now I feel the cars pull off and everything. And we go park in front of Sweet Tooth's house, and we get out and we go inside, and we're like, what's up? You know, high-fiving and everything. And you know, and the house always has a bunch of people in it, you know, that are like other bands or, you know, friends and everybody that's going to the show that night. It's always like you're meeting new people and all this kind of stuff, right? So like a couple minutes later, 5-10 minutes later, that guy James walks in, and he's like sweating, dude. He's like, sweat's just pouring off his face, and he's like shaking a little bit. And we're like, dude, what's up? What are you doing? Where you been? And he's like, man, he's like, when y'all stopped the cars, I got out of the car and I walked into the house up the street. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, I walked into the house. I thought you guys were all in there. And we're like, what? And he's like, yeah, I walked into the living room, and there was some lady sitting on a couch, and I looked at her, and she looked at me, and he's like, so I just waved to her, and I walked in the kitchen because I thought you guys went in the kitchen or something. And so I walked back into their kitchen. He's like, and somebody from the back room was like, who is it? Who's here? Or something like that. And the lady on the couch was like, it's a lunatic. And they started freaking out. And he was like, oh my God, sorry, I'm in the wrong house. But he ran out of the house and came up the street where he saw us all parked, and came inside and was just like super freaked out. And That had to be like the best band story ever. These people had to see that weirdo come up in there.
What state was that in?
That was in Fort Worth, Texas.
So I'm surprised he didn't get shot at.
No kidding, dude. No kidding. And he was freaked out when he realized,
Oh man.
and he thought, he was like, man, I'm used to like coming in, and there's always like some new person sitting on the couch. He's like, I just thought it was a person hanging out, waiting for the show tonight. But definitely one of the best stories ever.
That could have, maybe not for him, but it's probably funny now, but yikes.
Oh yeah.
Looking all ridiculous and then freaking out some people. I mean,
yeah.
Especially nowadays. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Any I guess any like crazy venue stories, or I mean, we talk a lot about the whole like venues taking cuts. I don't think at the time that happened back in the day, but now it seems to be like a thing now.
Well, I'll tell you what, like kind of what that band had really modeled itself afterwards. We went and found a bar that was doing really shitty, and like had nothing to do with heavy metal, had nothing to do with like nothing, right? Just really shitty. And we sat on a Friday night and watched as like, they had like a couple pool tables or bar. We watched how much money they made on a Friday night. We went to the owner guy and said, hey man, listen, what if we brought like our PA, we set up in the corner, we brought our friends and charged at the door, and we kept the door, and you can make the alcohol, we'll pack this place out. The guy's like, yeah. And we fucked off all the metal bars in town and all that stuff, all the music places, and we just started our own thing, and got our crowd big enough to where we went to the big clubs and said, hey, we'll play here, but we want to take the door. And the clubs were like, yeah, no, we don't do it like that. And we're like, well, we don't do it any other way. And I think they snubbed us once or twice more. And then they ended up it being us being a problem if we were playing on the same night as any other band. And then they were like, all right, you guys can do it that way. And so we kind of did it where, so our last local show, we ended up making, which was an average show at the time. It wasn't like a farewell show or anything like that. It just ended up being like the last show we played. We ended up making, after we paid the sound crew, after we paid, because we didn't even use their sound. Like we would be like, we want our own sound crew from, so we got like a big, like a sound crew out of Austin that would like do like, big shows and stuff. Like we would bring them down to Killeen, which was again like 45 minutes. So we would pay like top dollar. So we ended up paying the sound crew, paying each of the other bands, and we ended up making $8,000 at our show. And our other bands started to kind of replicate that here in Austin. Same thing. We'd go look for a bar that was just like, not doing great, and they actually don't know any different. Like you go, we'd like to have you bring you a bunch more customers, and we just want to have somebody work the door and charge $5. And so I think from a local level, I think bands, if they still kind of did some stuff like that, I think there's still a little bit of wiggle room.
Yeah, it's a hard sell to do that nowadays. Like, hey, we'll take a crappy bar, for example, and then just kind of present that idea. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it works sometimes. I think we had a place up here where they kind of attempted to do that, but then like it was kind of like in the middle. Not I would say it was in the middle of nowhere. It's just the location sucked, and it never did real well on the Fridays. But like, I guess that varies because our area is like kind of like a hit and miss. But again, it all depends on the area generally. So how's your music scene where you live then? I mean, it sounds kind of thriving.
Well, Austin, it's kind of weird, right? Because people think of Austin, and Austin even has this title of live music capital. And I think so back in like the back in like the early 90s, I think it was like that. It was like kind of the new cool spot, like, and it was real supportive because it was supportive of like power pop punk, like stuff like that,
Yeah.
And I think because a lot of the college kids and stuff, and for some reason, like metal, they had a bars like, that is like kind of a classic. A lot of the people who've been around in the Austin scene for a long time know about this place called the Back Room. And it was like the place where like heavy bands would play, but the Back Room was always kind of like, and Austin in general was always like the place where, you would look at all the shows that you had coming up for the month and you'd be like, okay, we're playing San Antonio. And at the time it was the White Rabbit, which was like, that place was, everybody knew the White Rabbit. Like it's legendary, and that place was like this all ages venue in San Antonio that everybody loved to play. It had 2 stages. It had a back room, a front room. The front room was like this big main stage where you could put a national act, but the back room was this like no AC, little tiny stage. It stood like maybe like a foot off the floor. And it was like the grind, like, and it was so much fun to play. Like you liked playing the big stage, the main room, because it was like, you kind of felt like, you got like rock star treatment, right? But if you played the back room, oh man, it was like you could fit probably like 50 kids in there and they would all fit in there. And so it was a great setup because they would play main stage, and while the bands were rotating off the main stage, the second stage would pop off. And so, man, if you played that second stage, those kids were like fighting to be one of the like 50 or 75 kids that would cram into this little sweaty, and I don't think there was any AC in the back room. It was just nasty. And it was the energy was just like off the charts. And so, that club, if you could play San Antonio and hit up the White Rabbit, it was definitely like incredible. And then you would play Dallas, which was this whole different vibe, man. Dallas was like, brought from like the roots of like Pantera. So it was like very metal, like, like the difference of metal bands from San Antonio to Dallas was crazy, because San Antonio was more of like this like Hollywood type, spin off of it, which was still cool. There was a lot of cool bands that came from there, but it was like makeup and, like tight pants. And then you would go to Dallas and it was like not that at all, so it was more just like the heavier, the better, and so, it was like you would play with 2 total different bands, and my band kind of fit, but in both those genres real well, and so so we loved it, man. We loved playing those cities. But when it came to Austin, we'd see Austin on the on the thing, and we'd be like, just because we knew like it was still fine, because you still had your people that would come, diehard metal fans that would come out, but the scene here was mostly like this like pop punk kind of thing. And we had some good friends that were in like bands that were in like that power pop punk scene. And they loved Austin, and Austin loved them right back. So, yeah, Austin's always been a little bit of a struggle. And then, like I said, they build themselves as like this live music capital. But since this city has grown so much, Austin, like, I don't know if y'all see, but it's always on these lists of like best places to live and all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
when that happened, we got a ton of people from like California and just like all over. It's a lot of people from California, but it made it to where a lot of like these clubs got like either shut down or like bought up and gobbled up by like, oh, they're tearing down this club that's been here for forever, and they're putting up a high rise, and then there'd be some club that all of a sudden these like, these high rises are full of people living in them, they're like apartment complexes and stuff. And then they have like, they're putting all these like sound ordinances and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, so the clubs have to stop playing music by a certain time. And it really made like a lot of the like cool venues and stuff just, I don't know. So like for a kid that wants to go check out a show, I shouldn't say kid, an adult that wants to go check out a show, it's like you got to go pay downtown, pay $25 for parking before you even go pay for the ticket to go to a show. I mean, Austin's really got to a point where it's not really supportive of music scene. So yeah, so it's so from some elements it's tough here. But again, if you're looking, and you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go find again, there's tons of bars around, if you want to go find a place. I mean, we ended up finding a place that kind of worked with the same vibe that we were talking about, except they were actually a happening little spot. So they're a coffee place called Kick Butt Coffee, and they run this really cool thing where I think they're just extreme local band enthusiasts, and they're like, hey, yeah, all the bands get to keep the door, and I think they just run that whole business like that, and very supportive, giving that back to the bands, and the bands treat the place very well, and but again, it's not in the classic downtown locations. It's about 15 minutes out, but super cool spot.
Nice. I guess and you're currently still playing, right?
Yeah. My band still plays. We're right in the middle of probably just like chilling out for a little bit before writing music, but yeah.
So I guess we'll get to the gross topic. We want to talk about like when the whole like beast, to call it the beast era here.
Yeah.
Like what did yourself and your band do during that when everything was on shutdown?
Yeah, so that was kind of what I was. So basically, we were putting together some music, and we were basically me and the drummer coming up with the skeleton of what the music was going to be for the band, and we were like, our vocalist was like, hey, can you guys put this down on a recording so I can take it home and like study it and put vocals to it? Sure, no problem. So, we'd record some stuff very, just very like, for lack of a better word, very ghetto. And I would send it to my old guitar player, John. He lives in Florida. He was like, man, send me that stuff. I'll clean it up a little bit. That way I can send it to your vocalist and he can listen to it and kind of, do stuff. And my buddy in Florida is just like a nerd about the stuff. And he's like, oh, dude, if you could record this again and just like, instead of recording it with one mic, y'all don't have any more mics? And I'm like, no. He's like, oh man, there's this like great mic package, Sweetwater sells here. Can you guys get this, because this would sound so much better. Okay, sure. And then it just turned into, hey man, if you had if you got the focus right and you got Reaper and you got this and you got that, and I could get this to sound just a little bit better, I'm really having fun like tooling y'all stuff. And it's like, okay, sure. And bam, then the lockdown hit and it was just like, okay, like, we've got 4 or 5 songs where we've got all this stuff kind of, where we stepped up the game with each song on recording it. And it was like, well, now we have nothing but time on our hands. So let's go ahead and take advantage of this and let's just put this album together, And it's so, during that time, that's what we did. We put that whole album together, wrote it, started the major recording process, and then that Snowpocalypse thing happened like right during all that pretty much. And that was when it was like, okay, let's even go back on the first tracks that were kind of like we recorded with 2 mics and now let's record it with all the mics. Let's get it down, even better. So we made really good use of that time, and it's really cool because we look at it and we go, that's something we'll remember for the rest of our lives. It's where we talk about it and we say, that's where the world, everything went on pause for us to write an album.
And you guys didn't have any problem actually getting together. You weren't like, oh, you're gonna get me sick and blah blah blah. And
no, our one of our drummer's girl had a little bit of a problem with it, and we just worked around it. I mean, it's like, what do you do? Like
right.
anywhere you go, it's like, it was. Nobody was doing anything else. I think that's the deal we made with like the women and stuff like that, is it was like, hey, listen, none of these guys are going around anyone. Like, we're not going anywhere. Like, it's just us. And so, like we're not risking it anywhere else, but we're going to take this risk. Like, no big deal, I mean, what do? You can't you got to live a little bit. Right. And I think for us, it was huge. It was a great place for us to be mentally, versus just being like, have nothing to do or feel useless or whatever. Like, we were working, like we were really, doing a lot of things outside of our comfort zone. Like, I'd never recorded, I'd never wanted to do that. And the band, of course, was like, dude, we should record this all on our own. And I'm like, bitch, what you're saying here is I should learn how to do all this recording stuff, and I should record us, because I'm like, y'all ain't doing it. And so I had to learn how to use Reaper, how to adjust mics, how to do all that stuff. And so, I mean, I'm not saying that I did it some miraculous job on it or anything, but it was stuff that I had like, I just throughout my whole career in music, I avoided twisting knobs, however I could. Like, even when I was in bands with guys, you always have that one guy in a band that's just a nerd on equipment. I'd be like, dude, can you get my shit to sound good? Like, can you handle that? And so this was just like, okay, fine, I will get my hands dirty and do all this stuff, and it was cool. Like, our guy John over in Florida, it was like, as soon as we had some stuff down, I would just shoot everything over to him, and he was, super instrumental. He was just exactly like being another part in the band, and just being like, hey, let's place the drum mics like this. And I would send him pictures, and he'd listen to it, and I'd send him videos, and he'd be like, hey, can you move that snare mic like 6 inches to the left? Okay, cool. Here, he's like, record, do another sound check, send it to me real quick. Okay, cool. Let's do this. So we were definitely working it, for sure. It was a good thing for us.
Yeah, that's actually good. That's a good thing that a lot of bands have picked that up too. Like, because there's a bunch of stories that they didn't do anything, but like, that's cool. Like, you also took advantage of those times. So, like, once things got better, were you guys like, all right, time to get on the road and do like a bunch of promo for like the band or the music that you worked on, or how did?
Yeah, I think for us, it was definitely one of those things. And I think we're really happy that we did what we did when we could do things at that moment, because as soon as life got back into like full gear, it was like, I own a CrossFit gym in Austin, and it's like all of a sudden, we're right back to work, and my vocalist has a kid, and it was like, bam, he's in the liquor industry. He was like right back to work, and all of a sudden it was just kind of like a lot of life started to get real and like get back in the way. It was like go time again. And so it kind of slowed us down a little bit and made us like, kind of like, okay, well, so we're, what exactly are we trying to do? Are we going to try and continue to just like write and put out music? Are we, what kind of take do we want to take on like playing out and playing live shows and doing all that kind of stuff? And it's a lot of work, like a band that wants to go out there and hustle. My first band that went out there and was successful, we hustled. Like, we used to, we did the whole thing. I mean, it was back then when you could do things like flyers were a big deal, even stuff like that. So we, like doing legwork, and so with this band, it's a different time, right? Where everything's through like social media and all this stuff, but it's still a lot of legwork, and so it's like, well, what do we, do we want to just continue to just write music and have fun with it? Or are we trying to do all the legwork and do the, what approach are we trying to take? And I think we've kind of sat back into, like making music that we want to play, and, maybe not concentrating on, doing a lot of the shows. Like it's like at this time, so I don't think it's necessarily, I love playing shows. I like doing that whole part of it. But if these, if the other guys in my band are to the point where it's like, dude, they have families and it's like hard to get away and do the thing. I get that, and these guys are like my best friends, and it's just kind of where we're at,
You guys gone on like tours? Actually, I was like, you've done like small touring or huge tours, like any
No,
of that?
not in this band. So this band actually got together um, probably like 6 months before the Beasts. Yeah. So, and there's a big story behind it. So me and the drummer, so the drummer like 20 years ago was in a power pop punk band that loved Austin. Right. And we were I was in a metal band called My Fix with the female singer, and our bands were like best friends. We played at the same, we rehearsed at the same like storage shed type place when we started out, and we just immediately clicked with those guys. They were hilarious. They were like the funniest dudes ever, and they would come over and watch us play, practice, and then we would go over to their practice place and watch them, and we'd hang out all the time and do acid and just like all this, just ridiculous stuff. And I remember that he played, so he was my drummer in this band, but he was a bass player in his punk band. And one night, and we were hanging out, and he was like, he had never heard the band Korn. Like, and it was during their first album, so they weren't out long at all. And he heard them, and he was like, dude, this is so badass. And I was like, yeah, this is dope. And he was like, man. And he was like, we were heading up to the practice space, and he's like, dude, asked my drummer, can I get on your drum kit? And the guy was like, yeah, sure. And dude, he got on there and never really played drums, just messed around. And he got on my drummer's kit, and you could see him just like looking at everything, kind of like mapping out what he was about to do. And dude, he started playing, and he just crushed. He was like killing it. And just like a very like fierce style, just like his, and I was like, dude, this guy's badass. And so so that was where so that's how long I knew this guy. And then my vocalist I met at through a mutual friend that was like, oh yeah, my friend Cody, the vocalist, he was like, that guy was in a band in Corpus Christi. He's like, you were in bands, I'm gonna introduce you guys, So we met, and we started this other band called Gigantelope. And this was probably back in, probably like now probably 12, 13 years ago. And with that band, we played with some national acts and stuff like that. And me and him decided that project was kind of like almost like a Southern metal kind of thing. And him and I decided to break off and start something else, which was School for the Deaf. And, the band was together for maybe, I said 6 months. I don't even think that was it. It was probably like 3 or 4 months. And it was like, okay, so we're starting this new band, and we need material like immediately. Like we didn't want to take a break from like playing shows, like playing out, because the band Gigantelope had gotten to the point where we were really gaining ground and playing a lot of shows and doing some traveling and all this kind of stuff. And I knew that if we kind of slowed down that momentum, life would get in the way, and so we decided we need to hurry up and write songs. So I've never written songs like by myself. It was always like a collaborative thing in my other bands. Like my first band was definitely like full on collaboration. Like everybody came to the table with different things. And then that was in My Fix. And then in the band Gigantelope, I actually got a chance to take a backseat, because I had a guitar player that was like full of piss and vinegar, and he wanted to write everything. And it was like, cool, it's one less thing I have to do. And so I would write my bass lines, and it was really, I tell my friends, I'm like, that was the biggest growth as a musician that I'd ever had. Going to like have to play someone else's style. It was like a really cool challenge. It was like, and I've actually seen people be kind of almost like negative to that kind of thing, but it was very challenging and really cool though. Like you had to, it made you come up with things you never would have come up with before and play in a different style. I wasn't like this huge, like Southern metal guy. I liked the band Down. I think I've always thought that they were cool. I'm just a Phil Anselmo fan, being from New Orleans and everything. And
I was gonna say you have like both genes because now you were from there and then you moved to Texas, so you're kind of like the hybrid.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I got it. I liked some of the stuff. I like, like little bit of like, COC and stuff like that. And so, some of that stuff's cool. Not really exactly what I would want to play, but it had been the first time since my first band, so I was excited to play with people again, and so I still loved the songs and everything. It was fun, but it did get to the point where me and the vocalist were like, I think we want to play something a little bit different, and so we started School for the Deaf, and immediately I was like, okay, we need music, like quickly. And so it was the first time I'd ever tried to write like by myself. And I took 4 months and wrote that album from front to back. And it was, again, like a whole different style of trying to work with music, and I think, and I found big time benefits, and then I found big time struggles where some of the benefits were you do get instead of just coming to a practice place and everybody looking at each other and being like, what do you got? And everybody throws something off the cuff. It was like being able to write, a verse and then sit with it and really try and think about it without the pressure of like your other band members looking at you like, what do you got? You got anything? And you're trying to kind of think of something on the spot. It was like you could sit there and try a thing, and if it didn't work, you're like, that doesn't really work. Let me think about this for a second. And I just remember like pacing my floor at like, 3 a.m, trying to come up with, okay, I've got these 3 riffs that go great together, but I need that one last riff that really ties this all together and makes it work, and so it was 4 months, 12 songs, and I mean, like, it was like the whole structure of the song, the way the drums, like the basic pattern, I would go to the drummer and be like, check this out. This would be, boom, and then kind of like, the struggle with that though, right, is it's still hard that you're, again, that drummer has to be able to change his style now to do the thing that you're telling him to do. And now you've written the song, right? You've maybe like, there was parts where I wrote like the vocal melodies, like maybe not the words or like whatever, but I'm like, this is how all this would syncopate. And now you're asking someone to play the stuff that they didn't actually come to the table with. And I mean, they were totally on board with it. They were like, oh, badass, you got this all done. Like, this is sick. Like, this is great. But still like these little nuances of like, making everything like extremely tight. It's tough. It's really tough because everybody hears things just a little bit different, so I think that's kind of the downside. That's where I was talking about. There was a guy on one of the previous podcasts. It's just like, yeah, I want to write the music and then have all, go to a different city and then these different musicians play it, and I'm just like, man, it blows my mind because just to get a couple of people on the same page for an album's worth of work is a lot of practice. And and the thing is like, that's one thing I think over time, like with all the bands I've been in were extremely tight. Like my band, my first band, My Fix, we practiced every single day. You know, I own a CrossFit gym right now. I have people that work out every single day, an hour a day, every single day. And I'm like, when it comes to playing music and being in a band, that's how it's got to be. You got to
Yeah.
practice like every single fucking day. Like it's like you're going to the gym, you know, and you got to expect your wives and girlfriends and all this to like be okay with that stuff. And then you've got to go play shows and like do the whole thing. And, you know, it's a lot. You know, it's definitely a passion project because obviously, as you guys know and stuff, right? There's no money in it.
No, not at all. Like, are you wild on stage because you said you do CrossFit? I could see you do like David Lee Roth shit. No.
Yeah, you know, I was a big fan. That's actually, you know, if you go to my gym's bio right now, it kind of talks about that. It's like, you know, prior to doing CrossFit, you know, I was never into athletics and stuff, but the rush of going on stage and having to know that you're going to go on stage before, you know, a band that's at the top of their game, you know, when we played with Slipknot, they were on the first album, like they were out for blood, and we played with them. If anybody's ever seen Slipknot on the first album, it was the craziest thing you would have ever seen. It was crazy. I mean, like, you know, I remember seeing them like a couple weeks after they were playing Dallas, and we went to Dallas and saw them. It was pretty nuts because they're in this like venue that the stage had to be probably 25 foot across, which for like 9 members was like nothing.
Yeah.
And they're playing, and at one point, dude, I look on stage and like the DJ Sid is over on the side and he's pissing. You just see a line of piss into the air. He's pissing, and Clown is lighting someone else on fire with like lighter fluid on his legs and burning up his suit. And
I
the
think
guys,
I've heard of all the crazy, this kind of crazy shit they used
dude,
to do.
it was like chaos. And
I feel like they used to throw shit at each other too, but that's what I heard. It was a rumor. I don't know.
It could be, man, but like I remember they grabbed a keg. Clown grabbed the keg and threw it, and it bounced. And obviously, the stage of the club didn't have a barricade or anything, and they threw it, and it bounced off stage and hit this little kid, right? And after the show, we go outside, and we had just played with them, they were so freaking cool to us, man. They were like, they kept up with us afterwards. We used to talk to them on the phone and stuff. They wrote a big article about our band and everything. Just the coolest guys. We go outside afterwards, and they have that kid out there, and the tour manager is walking around just pacing on the phone. He's like pacing, and you can tell everything's tense. And they have that kid back there, and they are just like taking pictures with him and giving him shirts and everything. And the tour manager guy was on the phone with the label, who was telling him, man, y'all better make that kid the happiest kid in the world, because we're not trying to get sued over what just happened. And I mean, the band is just like giving him all this merch and taking pictures with him. And the kid is just looking like, this is the best day of my life. I got a friggin' cut on my eye from the Slipknot show, and now they're hanging out with me and all this stuff. And what was crazy at that same show, probably, and their tour bus was parked right outside the club on the curb. And on the back trailer, they had the back opened up, and they had all their suits hanging over the trailer, like to get, I guess they had probably washed them real quick and like hung them so that they could dry. And about 15 to 20 feet away around the back of the club was Dimebag and Vinny signing stuff and saying hey to everybody. They were there at the show, and just and I mean, at the time, it was like they were right there. They were like 10 feet away from us, and my guitar player went and took a picture with them, and they were as cool as could be, like, but it wasn't like tons of security around and people stopping people from going in certain areas. No, it was like just like all right there. Yeah.
I can't imagine what those outfits smelled like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they for saying like they don't want they like a nasty sweat would pour out of their mask and into their mouth. I mean, I've read like old stories about that, but I'm sure nowadays it's like they got a bunch of costumes and a team to clean them. But like,
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
the grinding days, I can't imagine 9 dudes trying to. Well, I'm sure Roadrunner took care of them pretty good back in the day, but like
Yeah,
nowadays, yeah, it's hard to pull off that many members and then try to tour and no, yeah, I can't imagine.
yeah, it was definitely crazy. And so I remember we got a chance to see the we got a chance to see the rider and everything when we played with them, and we actually saw the so they were on so right they had just gotten off Ozfest and they were on tour with Coal Chamber, and they were on a night off, and between like Austin and Dallas or San Antonio or something, and the promoter paid $500 for Slipknot to get him at the show on a night off, which is crazy because you think of that's 9 dudes, that's their crew, like $500. Like now, if you thought about like what their cost was, dude, it's nuts.
I mean, $500 still a lot back in the day, but like, yeah, nowadays
that's $500 for the whole band for the night.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
that's unheard of for like them now. Impossible, actually.
Oh yeah, you could.
But I feel like there's not very many members left. I mean, no pun intended, but like, I everybody keeps quitting. I don't know. Like, I think there's like a few of them left, but yeah.
Yeah. I've stayed on top of it a little bit. I think the last one was Craig Jones, was like the guy with the spikes. But I think he was like, sampler guy, and who knows, man. I think that
he's probably the easiest job. I think. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. And then to tell you the truth, man, like we had a lot of interactions with Clown, and that guy's a genius. That guy is like, he definitely is like a visionary, and like just ideas and everything, probably to the point of like where it's like not ADHD, but like where it's like talking to someone who's crazy, kind of, but like but at the same time, they're very smart. Where it's just like, dude, like, I even like Corey was super cool. But he's a little more grounded type, but dude, Clown was just out there. And, we really had a lot of interaction with Joey, and, he was one that he wrote that article for us and everything. Like he was a good dude. But yeah, man, like, and what was crazy too is we played, you talked about like with how the label took care of them and everything. And we, they got taken care of, but we saw also, we played with Nickelback, and
the Nickelback.
Yeah, we played with them right at
nice.
right at the peak of the that This Is How You
Thumb. They were on Roadrunner when they came out, which is kind of weird that Roadrunner did.
So dude, they were like a golden ticket for Roadrunner at the time. They were like really pulling in like a lot of money, and so they were getting taken care of. But those guys were prick. To tell you the truth, we played this show with them, and we had this there was, like whenever bands would play this place, they always had this back area where like everybody could go hang out and all this kind of stuff. And it was just their band and their crew, which wasn't like this like overly extravagant amount of people, and they had this like trough back in this room that was like, like a, you picture like a Texas trough of like for a horse to drink out of, it was like one of those, like a big, like, I don't know if you guys know what it is, but it's like a big, yeah. And so it was filled with ice and every kind of beer you could imagine, and like so much beer, like of all these different brands and everything. And we walk back there and we grab a beer, and we're all like kicking it before the show, and some guy walked in. I think he was one of the guys from Nickelback, like one of the guys in the band, you know, and he walked in, and, you know, we had just played with Slipknot like a month prior, and Slipknot, like the guys, you know, we're opening for them, and they come on the side of the stage, Slipknot, and they videotape us. They're like videoing us, you know, with like a handheld camcorder type thing. We're playing with Nickelback, and these guys, like, the guy comes into the room for a minute and he like turns around and walks out. You know, we were like, hey, and he turns around and walks out. And we're like, all right, whatever, you know. And so a couple minutes later, the club owner comes in there and he's like, hey guys, he's like, this is Nickelback's from tonight, and one of them just came and got me and said that you guys asked me to come get you guys out of here. And we're like, what? And so we're like, man, you know, that guy, like, at what point do you forget what it was like to be a local band and go tell the local band, like, hey guys, like, what's your names? Like, nice to meet you, whatever, you know, like, at what point are you too cool for that anymore, you know?
Or it still happens, but that's kind of funny. That was Nickelback of all people.
Yeah, you know, and we were just like, it was funny too, man, because we
Aren't they Canadian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't they supposed to be like really nice?
Yeah. So we had just gotten off stage, and like, that was the thing too, man. We were, you know, we were not Nickelback fans, and we were kind of like, you know, we were like, what the fuck, Roadrunner? Y'all sign these guys? Like, you have all these cool bands, and then you sign these guys, you know? And so, you know, we were like, man, we're gonna go play that show, and we're gonna fucking murder it. Like, we got asked to be on the bill, and we were like, well, we're definitely not turning this down. We're gonna go and like just like fuck shit up. So we went and just had like an amazing show, and you know, and then afterwards they were jerks, and it was like, I don't know, we were kind of like, cool, good. We, you know, we're almost more glad that you guys didn't come back here, and we're like super cool, and we're like, damn it, like, they were cool guys. We like those guys now, you know? So, you know, and I'm sure every band is, you know, I'm sure they're cool guys, but I think we just kind of took it as like, you know, took the opportunity to be like, you know, yeah, one more reason not to like them or something.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, you know, my band's open up for a few, like, some well-knowners, and kind of base it on how, like, even if I don't really listen to music, I might chat with the band. It just depends on the band. Like, I would just remember like one particular band, I won't say who, like, they all hid, and like I never saw any of them. So
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay, whatever. I mean, they didn't come out until they played, so I don't know if that's just some. It all depends, and it's not saying I lost respect for the band. I was just like, oh, they must be one of those types. But
yeah, you know, and
yeah.
I think too, like, we played a show with Anthrax, and they kind of, you know, I think we quickly kind of realized, like, man, you know, those dudes have been playing forever. Like, I don't, you know, and we were like, man, I kind of don't blame them that they do this every night, you know, and if they wanted to check out the local stuff like every night, it's probably a stretch, you know.
So none of them like came out at all. You didn't see any.
So Scott Ian did, and he actually, he talked to my singer, was like, hey, you did a really good job tonight, and
That's
like,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I heard he wasn't. I've heard stories he's either nice or not nice, so I don't know. I just assume he's
I heard he was really nice. And then this now, I don't know too much about Anthrax, but they had this singer at the time, which it seems like it seems like they kind of have gone through a couple singers.
Just
and
two.
So, okay.
There's a run real short guy. Well, I won't say names, but run real short guy, and then one
short guy. He was kind of short. He almost looked a little buff, brown hair.
Like really spray on tan.
I don't know.
I'm assuming. Well, I don't know if it was.
What's his name?
Well, they had the first singer was like, I can't even think of his name right now. Because he's back, and then they got one in the middle whose name's John. He didn't sing very high. He had a nice voice, actually.
It might have been.
It depends on what year you play with them.
Yeah, I can't remember, but he was a nice dude, you know. And then, man, I just remember, and I wasn't an Anthrax guy, but I remember there was this dude at the show that was just like, that was crazy about this. Their drummer was just like massive fan about. So
Yeah.
for the Anthrax fans out there, that drummer must be like next level because man, this guy was all about that guy.
According to this, they've had like 5 singers.
What? Really?
Joey Belladonna.
Yeah, Joey's original, and then they got John,
John
after that.
Bush.
Yeah, and that's the main ones.
Like
Like
says Neil Turbin, Dan Nelson, and Matt Fallon.
those guys probably don't count.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I said that. I want to say that I've like looked them up to kind of be like, or seen pictures of Anthrax, and I'm like, wait a minute, that definitely wasn't the singer that was there at the show. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we played some really interesting shows. We played a reunion show for this band. There was back in the 80s, there was a band that was like during like the hair metal phase. There was a band here in Austin that was like MTV level called the Dangerous Toys. Yeah, out of Austin, and they did a comeback show and we played with those guys, and they were the nicest dudes ever. And they're and we didn't know it at the time. I'm not from Texas or not from Austin and stuff, and so like we didn't know like how big those guys were, like and somebody was like, dude, we got asked, hey, do you guys want to be on this Dangerous Toys show? They were a big band in the 80s, and we're like, yeah, definitely. And man, these people, like, because it was the reunion show and they hadn't played in forever, these people showed up in droves and just freaking love that band. And like I think they're still playing shows like today. I think they just did like like one of these shows on like a what is the boats, like a cruise ship.
Yeah, like they're yeah. Basically the cruise rock like concert.
Yes. Yeah. They just did one of those, and yeah, they were big time.
Now it's come to the point of the audience where I'm going to try to guess what you look like for the
Okay.
audience. I picture, I don't know, do you listen to Devin Townsend at all?
I don't. I have a friend that
I picture you like being the drummer that he had with a mohawk and buff. So that's all that's all I'm thinking about. Like a CrossFit guy, he's from Texas, he must have a tan. He's got to have a mohawk to show his rock roots, but yet appropriate for somebody who's buff.
Gotcha.
Am I wrong? Well, I guess if you don't know what the drummer looks like, that does not help me.
Yeah, no, I got I have I just have dreads. I don't know if I'd say completely buff, but
I was way off then.
But yeah.
Who do you think you look like?
Oh man.
Do you get called like, hey, aren't you blah blah accidentally?
It's funny. There's another guy here in town that has a band, and it's really interesting. He has like billboards up here in Austin, and he's a lawyer, and he has dreads, and so people see him on these billboards, and he has a band, and it's like his name's David Comey, and it says lawyer that rocks, and I'll have people every once in a while are like, hey, David Comey, you look like him, and I'm like, oh man, like.
Oh, you got a camera, right? Can you turn it on so I can see what you look like? See how close I was?
Let me see here.
That's not too weird, I guess.
Let's see. Did that do it?
Oh, okay. No, you look like no, I was way off. Way off. You look like the singer for Chris Barnes. Cannibal Corpse singer?
Cannibal Corpse.
You could be totally him. I was way off. All right, you can turn your camera off.
All right.
Well, you look like Chris Barnes. I would have never guessed.
What band is he in now?
He's in 6 Feet Under.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Isn't he the one that's like talked a bunch of shit lately and everyone hates him?
Is he the guy that has the like the skulls and shit in his house?
I don't. He could.
Didn't somebody get caught with like a bunch of skulls and stuff in their house, and then they have songs that is like, I have a skull in my house.
I don't know if that's the same. Maybe. I don't really follow up on him. I mean, like,
I know he
Yeah.
occasionally says some dumb shit on the internet, and everyone wants to cancel him because he says modernized metal's a bunch of
Crazy
pussies or
stuff.
something now.
somehow they gave him. They still got a career. That's what you look like, though. That's funny. I was way off. So, actually, I was gonna say, like, you're obviously a bass player, right? So, like, it's funny how many bass players we keep talking to on here, but there's so many that there's still like a lack of bass players everywhere, and it's like everywhere going on. So you're one of the like lucky people that have a working band. And I mean, are you just in one right now, or are you just in several? Because this usually is how it works too with drummers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm in one band. I here in Austin, that is a big thing that people have like a lot of bands and like there's definitely like a drummer shortage. I think
Oh,
yeah, definitely. I think here what's happening is a lot of people are, either in like, they're doing like drum work for stuff on the internet a lot of times. It's just, it's such a different time right now, but I guess that's the thing, right? Is like, I would love to have just like one band and concentrate on like making it the tightest thing ever than having like multiple bands. Like, I don't understand how people do it, to tell you the truth.
that's actually like a great advice that I hear a lot. Is just like, stop selling yourself short for all the little things, and if you just concentrate on one, that would be the maximum focus for your music. And
Yeah,
it would
People
be the
don't
time. It
understand
would
that though.
no, they don't. But like, I, I don't see how anybody would want to like cut themselves short. If you
dude,
want to put, yeah,
I think we're in such an odd time too, man. I think that, like, to tell you the truth, this is like, it might be like a dying breed, because like some of the stuff that I really like when I talk about like being in one band and like getting them tight, like, my first band, we practiced all the time, and it's like we didn't use metronomes. Like, everything was based off of like feel, and we were just tight. Like, we were extremely tight, like in any situation. Like, we'd do a pause in the song for like dramatic purpose. And it was like, we all knew when we were coming back from that, like, all this kind of stuff. And, now I think that a lot of people are like, oh, okay, hey, do you want to start something awesome? Well, I'm going to write all the music on a metronome, and, can you play to a metronome? That way you learn stuff. And like, we practice like once a week or something like that. And I'm just like, dude, like, what? I'm like, this, and I think that my ways of thinking are probably a little bit older now, because people don't think this way anymore. It seems to me anyway. The people that other people that I played with, and other people that have kind of got stuff, talk to them or whatever, it seems like that's the general way that they try and play. And I'm like, man, I don't,
I mean, yeah, you're not wrong, and I feel like a lot of people want to put the click tracks and extra things, but like that works too. But yeah, there's old school feels too, where you're just kind of bouncing off each other, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But it's like everybody wants to modernize everything.
yeah.
Like I mean, we don't play to a click. I wish we did, because then I could add more stuff in it. Because who needs to hire keyboardists? But like, no, I mean, we do pretty well as far as being tight, and that's the most important thing, because again, you're feeding off each other. If somebody is behind, you'll know that they haven't been practicing.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing, right? Is like, if there might be nights where somebody in the band is like going through some shit or whatever, and like maybe the music might feel slightly different, but we all felt different as a band. Like, it all maneuvered that, or if like, if everything was hype. It was just crazy. Like, I don't know, but everything was always tight, you know? I don't know.
It definitely
Yeah.
varies. It depends of like the if how nervous somebody is, or if the venue's like hot, and you're just like
Yeah.
trying to you might be going faster than you should, but well, it that's what happens, you know.
Yeah. I just see a lot of like people looking for musicians around here, and you know, it's a lot of like, yeah, hey, you know, people that are in like multiple bands or like, you know, and I'm just like, dude, like with, you know, with a really good, hardworking band, I just don't see where you have time for anything else. Like the only time that I think that when I hear people having like a second or third band is I'm like, oh, that's the guy in the band that can't seem to get enough of his, like, that's the one guy that's like, hey, we should be practicing more, or we should be playing more, or we should be working harder, and the rest of the band is like can't seem to get it together. And so that one guy goes, well, if y'all aren't going to get off your asses, I need to go. I'm like hungry, and I need to go explore. I need to go get some other people to try and, you know, because you guys aren't doing it. Like, I need you guys to do it, you know? And so you know, and it's tough, right? Like I think I've always thought that, like, when, you know, when you'd hear about like one of your favorite bands is like, oh, now the singer is now doing something with this other thing. You're like, oh man, like,
I mean, it depends on who it is and how much time they have. I mean, if they're doing this for a living, they got all the time in the world, but I'm sure like somebody like you who's got, you said, your own business, it's like, well, I don't have time to do that. I got my band and then my business and
dude, I always
free
looked at,
time.
you know, it's crazy because I always looked at it as like, I have my business this way because I want a successful band, you know? And like, so I think that's like you're kind of tapping in a little bit of like what's going on with my band, right? Like, I've got a bunch of guys that are, you know, I'm like, I wish they would put forth a little bit more of their time into their craft, you know, and like we could play shows and do all the stuff, you know, and it's like, I'm like, damn, man, like I would, you know, if I had the right situation, would I end up starting another project as well? That would still be like, damn, dude, like, you know, I mean, I don't think I could handle two, but it's enticing, you know?
That's funny because like I was telling Brandon earlier that we're trying to order scrims, right? Because our singer suddenly wants them, but our guitarist, he's the one with the money, and like he was supposed to order them long ago, but it feels like I told my singer, I'm like, why do you always have to remind him? It's almost like he's going to do it only now when you said something versus he said something a long time ago about him. Now he's like looking into it. I'm like, wait, we told him this like months ago. I don't know, shit like that.
Yeah, dude, being in a band is the hardest. Like, it is, you know, it's so funny too, because a lot of times people think of people in bands as being like fuck offs or something. And it's like, dude, it's the hardest thing that you'll ever do. And I think that's why, I think that's the challenge, right? It's like, dude, you're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for, you know, to get a couple of people on the same page and create an artistic like thing, right? And like, you're dealing with everything in those other people's lives. You're dealing with, you know, you know, maybe one of the girls in the band, like the you know, girlfriend's or wife or something, is a bitch, you know. If there's always that shit going on, like that always fucking happens, you know. And then
anyone go ahead.
Are you the band dad, Scott?
On some things, you know, on other things, no. But like, it's interesting. Like, everybody seems to have like, you know, you got the band dad role on like this, and this, but then somebody else has got it on something totally different that makes sense, you know?
Okay. I thought maybe you were. It just seemed like you knew what you wanted and you wanted to focus on that. And by you saying what you did, I thought maybe you were just like, these guys don't have their heads together, so I have to do it. You know what I mean? That's the impression.
Well,
maybe not.
It's just kind of like, you know, it's kind of like just, you want people to, you know, I think I've built my life kind of in such a way where I'm like, you know, music's always been like my like number one thing where it's like I really want to do that. And what's cool too is like as you get older, you go, you know, I think it like I still want to play music. Like there's no part of me as I get, you know, as I get older that goes, I ought to put that up. Like I'm like, man, I would still love to be like, you know, like I think about like imagine like a couple friends that like get together and still play music when they're like older.
Yeah.
I'm like that would be the shit. Like what's you know, and I always think it's funny too when people give these bands like a hard time, you know, these like even fucking like Motley Crue or whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm like, bitch, like those dudes are still doing what they love to do. Like
Rolling Stones.
all of them,
Yeah.
of them, you know, and like they're still doing what they love to do. Like that's so cool. Like they get to, you know, that's, and I think I think that might be a generational thing too, that we look at, you know, I don't know how old you guys are, but like, you know, looking at like, you know, I think there was definitely a time when I was younger where it was like the only thing that could break through was like young bands. Like that's it. And I don't know if that's the same thing anymore. Because it seems almost to me like the younger bands are stuck regardless anyway. Like they're not, you know, I'm not seeing these. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess it depends on the band. Like there's a lot of them that are younger that are stupidly groundbreaking, but at this point the bar has been like set even higher. I don't know if because the whole YouTube thing and then starting up early and you know, because YouTube created a lot of crazy musicians offering free lessons and whatnot. But as before, you'd have to go to a teacher and all this. But like, I think the YouTube generation has spawned a lot of crazy young people, my opinion. Or maybe it's always been there, but I don't know. Like Polyphia, they're from Texas, and that band's ridiculous for what they are, and they're like really young.
Yeah.
So that's a good example of something.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, I don't think it's like, I think back in the day, it used to be like, well, you're not going to be, you honestly have like this small window where it's like, if your band is like successful, you've got to be between like 18 and, you know, like 25, 26 years old, you know. Now it's like, you know, you're seeing these tours that are out there and these big shows that are out there, and they're still like these dudes that were from, you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago are still crazy successful. And, but what's nuts, and now you're really hearing about a lot of the bands that are upcoming that are struggling. Their record deals are shitty. They're, you know, they can't seem to get like a financial foothold as easy as bands did in the past, you know?
Yeah, the money's not there no more. So it's just like even harder for like, unless you're completely groundbreaking, then like you're going to struggle, which
there's no money when it comes to playing in bands these days, unless you're some huge TikTok celebrity.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, it's a popularity contest.
Yeah.
That's the misconception people have, is they think all these bands are pocketing all the money. I was like, you don't understand that most of these guys are just doing it to survive. They don't even get shit for money.
Yeah, so this is kind of where, you know, where I saw you guys were looking. I guess we can get into it now. So this is where I saw, you know, you guys were looking for someone to kind of jump on the show and talk about, you know, different stuff that's going on, you know, kind of in the, you know, out there in the ether, right? And I saw there was a big show that happened in Vegas called Sick New World. This was like a month and like a month and a half ago or something. And, you know, tickets went on sale, like, I don't know, it was like beginning of the year. And the tickets sold out in like a matter of hours, right? But like, you know, if I went down the list on this, it was like, you know, I think the headliners were Korn, Deftones, System of a Down. And then from there was like, on that same bill was like Incubus, Soulfly, Cold Chamber got back together to play it. Katie got back together to play it.
Was that that was that outside show, because I think I saw the video for Cold Chamber. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I know what you're about. Yeah,
and Seven Dust and Spirit Box and just like all these bands. And it was, so we got our tickets, and we were like, cool, we're going to jump in. Like, there's like a Facebook group for it. And we're just kind of watching, you know, everybody talking and everything. And I made this comment, and I try to stay off, you know, I try to stay off social media with cesspool. But I make this comment in this Facebook group about, like, I say, man, I miss the days when bands didn't have to whore themselves out by doing meet and greets. And, you know, I went to this show a long time, this was ways back, where I saw that band Nonpoint. And they did this thing when they got done playing. They said, hey, anyone that comes over to our table and buys a CD, we will take them on the tour bus, and we'll hang out. And I remember being like, damn, it's getting rough out there, because, like, you know, that's their home. Like, a tour bus is like, that's like, these guys live in there, you know. It's like, and if they know, like, every night they're going to do this thing where they have to try and sell some CDs to get people to come on the bus, you know, they got to clean their house, they got to, you know, and then when they're ready for everybody to get the fuck out so they can chill out finally after the show and, like, go to, I don't know, rest before you have to go to sleep and, like, whatever, you know, I'm like, God, that kind of sucks. Like, you know, and I'm like, but that's how hard it was getting, you know. This was like at the end of CD sales, and you could tell they were really trying to move some copies of the CDs. So I see the same thing with these meet and greets, right? Like, you can pay the amount of money to go to the show, but if you pay an extra amount of money, you can either see the band, like, before, or, like, see some of their sound check. And so they'll play like a couple songs for, like, a sound check, and you get to watch it. And then afterwards, everybody lines up and you usually take a picture with somebody in the band, or, you know, the band, whatever. And I'm like, man, so back in the day, that looked like, you know, let's say you played a show on, like, a Thursday or Friday night. Well, you end up, you know, hanging out with the other bands. You end up maybe a couple fans, maybe a couple of key fans that you've known for years that come to everything, you know. And by the end of the night, you've had probably some beers in you, probably smoked a bunch of pot, who knows, whatever. You've done God knows whatever, and you get on the bus and you go to sleep. You're driving all night. The shit's uncomfortable. It's not your bed at home, you know. You're in this tiny little space. And then the next day you get in some town, you got to find some food, like, you know, you got sound check at, you know, whatever time. And you know, you get to live a little bit of your, you know, of your day, you know, doing whatever it is you want to do. And then sound check. And then you kind of get primed and ready for the show, whatever that looks like, you know, as a guy in the band. And then you play the show as hard as you can. And then you know, maybe you're toast for a little bit. You go hang on your bus, you chill the fuck out. And then you go back up in the club and mingle a little bit if you want to. Fuck, I'm sure there's plenty of times where they're like, dude, I just don't even want to go tonight. Like, I'm just not feeling it, whatever. But now, instead of all this, you have to, like, get ready early. Like, you're a headliner, so you go on at, like, you know, 10 or 11 or whatever. But you got to get ready now at, like, 5 o'clock. You know, we actually went to one of these for Spirit Box, and this chick, they're amazing, by the way. This girl has to, like, be ready to see all of her fan base at, like, 5 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock at night. You know, and it's like, dude, like, that sucks. Like,
they're Canadian. They're probably nice about it.
Yeah, dude, she's fucking, that chick is amazing. But so, like. But the thing is, it's like, man, that's like, they're having to do this. It's not because they want to do it. It's like they have to do it because they're not making any money from the thing. And so kind of what I was saying was, like, you know, I hate that bands have to do that now. And, you know, and it was so funny because a lot of people in these groups were like, man, it shouldn't be something that they think about it like that. They should want to do it. They're out there making all this money, doing the thing that they like to do, and they owe it to the fans. You know, we were the ones that paid, you know, $80 for this ticket to go to Vegas or whatever it is. I think it was more than that, but whatever. But they're like, I'm paying all this money. The band should do that for it, you know? And it's like, I'm like, what? Like, these bands, like, there was an age, a lot of people don't know now, where these bands were superheroes. These bands were, like, you know, untouchable. And you know, like I wasn't really around in the 80 band era, but like those dudes were like superheroes, you know, those
Right.
were like untouchable. Like to, you know, if you ever had somebody that back then that was like, dude, I met whoever, you know, Slash
Axl
or whoever.
Rose. Axl Rose. Yeah. Yeah. One of those
At
two.
Axl, that was like, whoa, you know, it was like a big deal. And it's like now, oh, I met so and so. It's like, okay, cool. You probably paid a meet and greet. You shook his hand. He stood next to you for a second. You took a picture.
I-
Like it totally takes the whole element out of that, you know.
I guess
And
I guess like now that you bring that up, like I guess I never looked at it that way, but like it's interesting how you're looking at it. It's like, I mean, like when did these things become the norm? Like, is that something on their contract they had to do, or is it like an easy? Because you're saying like, you know, they paid a certain amount for tickets, so it's like how much of the band does the band get of this ticket versus all the everybody else involved, like manager and
yeah,
record.
so the band's not probably not getting anything. You know, you think about it, they're wrapped into like, so now the
Yeah.
deals are probably like, so they're like these 360 deals. That's like the new way that they really burn you. And then in the 360 deal, it used to be like, so we were pretty good friends with the band Seven Dust, and they would kind of talk to us about like just like, you know, how some of the structures of deals would work. Basically, it's kind of like a bank loan, right? Is all a record deal
Right.
is. And
Yeah.
a lot of times you would make a significant amount of your money off of touring. So it was even at that point, it was like you still weren't making any more. Like you weren't. There was a time where you made money off of a record, off of a physical copy. Like you would make like X amount, and it still was like that was kind of up for like whenever you're doing your deal, like how much of that you get and all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
and eventually, you know, that's getting like whittled down. And then it got to the point where it was like physical copies weren't a thing. And it was like the bands could make the money off of touring. Well, you know, then it was like, and off merch. Merch was like a big thing. It was like they made like, that was their bread and butter, was like touring, sell merch. Well, then it was like, that, you know, the touring, right, is like you have to pay for the bus or the RV or whatever, and those buses are crazy expensive. So you would see a lot of these bands hold out forever on like a RV. They would buy an RV and like, dude, those things are like pieces of shit from what I understand. Like they would be like, dude, fucking things just fall apart. They're not meant for like this much like wear and tear. They're not meant to live out of. They're meant to do like a week, you know, a year or something, not fucking all year long.
That's why
you know?
they break
And so,
down. Yeah, they break down. It's like, oh shit.
yeah, they
can't
break
go.
down like nonstop, and everything breaks on them. It's like comical. Like, oh, this week the microwave thing fell apart, and like we got to get that fixed. And then like the fucking this thing broke, and like this thing's a piece of shit. And you know, this like everything breaks on these. So, in order to take that jump though to a tour bus is like crazy. I want to say it's like $6,000 like a week. My numbers might be totally wrong and totally skewed, but it's like crazy ridiculous. And so that's like cuts into that bank loan, right? You're like, oh man, like, you know, and they say like the biggest thing that you'll constantly hear from your tour manager, from everything, is the word recoup. Like they're like, get used to that word because you're gonna hear it nonstop. Recoup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're like, you know, they're like, you constantly get noise from your tour manager and your like, I think this is probably like the A&R guy, like you're getting this like, hey, you know, numbers like brought up to you, like, hey, this is where the numbers are this week. This is what the album's doing this week. This is where we're at this week. This is like, you know, how much did we sell at each show? Like you know, somebody's reporting on all those numbers. Like, hey, this is how many copies we sold. This is how we're doing in that city now. Like on and on and on. And so you're constantly getting these numbers thrown in your face about where your recoup is at, right? And so then they're like, you know, as soon as they're like, hey, some band is doing this thing, they're noticing a spike in album sales, and they're noticing a spike in, you know, whatever, and it's working for them. Well, we, you know, as soon as the labels get to hear that shit, they're like, hey, y'all need to be doing that too. Like y'all need to be doing that because they're, you know, there's success there. And then especially when, you know, now the record labels with the 360 deal, that means they get 360 degrees of, so it's basically like they get a little bit of everything. So now they get part of the merch sales.
Right.
where it used to not be that way. It used to be all the merch sales went to the bands. Well, now they get a piece of that. Well, then now the clubs are like, well, we want a piece of the merch sales.
Yup.
Yeah. And that's like that's like the new thing. And so, it was like telling these people in that group, like, hey, there's these bands aren't making shit. And they're like, bullshit. They're on this bill and there's this many people and they're all paying this money. And I'm like, dude, nah. I guarantee there was bands on that bill that weren't made, that were like, just like making next to nothing, where meanwhile, any of the, like, let's say there was, let's just say, because the amount's not $100,000, but for a round number, let's say they have $100,000 allotted to pay the bands. The bands that are getting a majority of that money is, Korn, System of a Down, and Deftones, the headliners, right? Because if without those guys being the like the anchor, it's not as big of a show as it would be, so then from there the money starts to trickle down like quite a bit. And then I guarantee there's bands on that bill that were paying, getting paid, not very much, but we're extremely happy to be on that bill to like reignite their exposure, stuff like that. So and then from there they have to pay their crew, their touring expense. And then who knows, Sick New World could have been like, hey, we want part of that merchandise that y'all are selling at this thing.
So basically like the whole meet and greet, like, again, like at one point did that come into play? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've never done one. Like, I like some bands a lot, but I feel like I'm not paying to see them. I mean, what if a lot of bands, even if you don't do that, they just come out and hang after the show, and you'd be lucky to like that you even get that. But like, I don't know. At one point, did they capitalize on like meet and greets? Maybe it's always been a thing. I don't know. I mean, you'd always get like VIP passes, but it wouldn't be a meet and greet. And then VIPs turn into like meet and greets, right?
Yeah. So I think, and I think VIP passes used to be more like, oh, you get to go to this like VIP like party thing. I think it was kind of like,
so it wasn't as cheesy as like the meet and greet, because I'm trying to think of at one point how long a meet and greet has been out.
So for instance, like we did this meet and greet thing for Spirit Box, right? So we got to go. It was like it's like a package now. It's like this whole package. So it's like, okay, cool. You get to go. You get to watch 2 or 3 songs from Soundcheck. Then it was like, it's like a Q&A. So they're on stage, you get to ask a couple of questions.
It sounds like a stalker thing. Like when somebody brought this up once, that it just sounds like a stalker kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And so then they go, okay, cool. So you can now, so then you get a shirt that's only exclusive to people that do this particular thing. And then you get a, I want to say there was something else we got. Oh, a poster. And it's just kind of like, damn, like why, like, it's just something about it. Like you nailed it when you said cheesy. There's something about it that's just cheesy. If it was like, hey, you're invited to the VIP party, and it's like, oh, what does that mean? It's just like, listen, there's like, like 200 people that get to go to it. It's an after party or a before party. And, oh, is the band going to be there? Oh, we don't really know. We don't guarantee that. There's a chance that the band might pop in. Like, how cool is that? And then the band pops in and you're like, damn, they want to be here. They wanted to say hey to their fans. Cool. Right. There's something about it now where it's like, they have to be there and they have to say hey to their fans. And you're like, ew. Like,
I just never,
like you said, you're like, yeah, just like you're saying, you're like, something about it just makes me not want to do it.
Yeah. Cause to me, that's a guarantee that for me, like if I see a band and I accidentally grab, like, not accident, they throw one with like a pick at me and I actually catch the one they actually use. Like, to me, that feels more special because it's like, I kind of earned that somehow. Like, oh, that's cool. Or they come backstage. Like the one time, like Steel Panther came out here and like they came and hung out at the bar area just to hang out. And like Satchel was dressed as a like normal person. And I got a picture with him. And it's like weird because he was being like, not Satchel. He was just being a normal guy. And it was like, he was just talking to me like he was like a super nice dude when he's not being sad, even though he's Satchel, he's funny, but
that's special, right? It's like,
it's like they're just hanging out.
Yeah, like, how would it be if everybody that comes to the show as they scan your ticket, you get to pick up a pick at the door. It's like, no, like
No,
you got
I want to catch a sweaty, worn out one that I found on the floor or it landed on me accidentally, but
yeah.
I've
And so
just
that's kind of the thing. It was like, and man, it's like, I see why bands do it or whatever, but it's like I miss the days when when the bands were put on such a high pedestal and were getting paid and taken care of to where they didn't have to do shit like that. Like I want to know that my band partied so hard last night that they had to sleep all day long and had to and they woke up an hour before the show and they don't even know what fucking city they're in. And somebody's like, dude, we got the show in an hour. You got to get ready. And they like, oh, fuck. Okay. All right. And then they maybe do a fucking line of Coke and they're like, I'm ready to go. Like there's something about that. Like, oh my gosh, like this is like,
or the things you never knew because a lot of the bands were mystery anyway. Like,
or mystery, man.
Social media has ruined that somewhat.
Yeah.
Kind of
and now,
jaded their mystery.
We're going to have to wrap this up here soon.
Yeah, but you're right. You're right.
We have typically we don't really care, but now that they're allowing for these videos to get transferred over to YouTube without me having to do anything, there's a 2-hour limit. We're pushing that
Gotcha.
2-hour vibe. So I'd rather not have the video on there.
Gotcha, man.
But yeah, basically, at this point, at the end of every episode, if you check some out, we play a song from whoever we interviewed. So if there's a song you have from something you've recorded recently, you'd like us to have it out there, you can talk about it a little bit. If there's something you want to talk about or share with the audience.
Sure. If you, I guess you just pull it up on Spotify.
Well, you can send me the MP3 or the WAV file, and I actually add it to the audio from the interview, so it streams when when we're done talking, the music will start playing for the audience to check out.
I got you. And is it and so you said an MP3 or a wave? I don't know how to convert it like from Spotify or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you convert it. As long as it's a file that I can add to my interface program that I put everything together with, it'll work.
Like if you have the album on your computer and then
you
could probably send like something from there to him.
Yeah, I can probably just give it to my studio guy and be like, hey man, send me
there you go.
Yeah, whatever
Awesome.
works. But yeah, basically, where can they find your music at? Where can they check you out at? What's the name of the project you're in? All that good stuff.
Cool. Yeah. Just School for the Deaf on Spotify and Apple Music. It's on all the.
That'd be fun. Sorry, it's hard to find that because of the name. Like, wait, there's schools for the deaf everywhere. Wait.
Yeah. School for the Deaf. We just tell everybody, hey, one word.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
one
right
word.
there on all that.
One word, guys.
Yup.
That's awesome.
Right on. Well, Scott, I appreciate you coming out and talking with us.
Excellent, man. It's been fun.
Hell yeah.
You've had some good, interesting stories from an era of music that I grew up in. Like I was a new metal kid throughout the 90s because that was the music of my generation.
Yep.
So Korn and Deftones were some of my favorite bands back in those days.
Yeah, man.
But right on. Well, anyone out there listening, if you want to be on Dark Side of the Scene, send an email to brandon@darksideofthescene.com and we'll get you scheduled. But we're going to roll on out here. So thanks to Scott. Thanks for checking it out. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Oh.